This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Well, now we'd like to welcome Tim Fedewa, the new spotter for Ryan Blaney and the number 12 Ford Mustang for Team Penske, to the Team Blaney Podcast. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So it's another year, a new season, and we had Josh Williams, Ryan's previous spotter, depart the team at the end of 2024 after the championship run. Fans get a little bit nervous when things change, especially after something as big as a championship. But we got some great news after the end of the year that we had a really great replacement coming our way, and that's you, Tim. So what are your first thoughts on joining a new team, joining a championship winning team, and just that outlook on that change?
I mean, obviously, being somewhere I was at SHR for 10 years, so it was it was a little different coming over. You're a little bit apprehensive, but when I done some talking with everybody at Penske and Ryan and Jonathan, I started feeling a lot better about it. That was an opportunity that was just too good to pass up. So I'm so glad that we get to work together and glad that it all came together. The stars aligned. It's just it's an amazing thing sometimes how everything comes together. And they won the championship. We talked a little bit before the end of the season. I knew the job was available or going to be available, and so I was excited with the prospects of talking to them at the end of the season. And it all worked out to where it is now, and now I'm just ready to go racing.
Now, when a lot of fans hear the name Tim Fedewa, they might think that sounds familiar, and it should sound familiar to a lot of people because you had a really successful and long career in motorsports as a driver before you even stepped into the role of spotter. One thing we like to do on these interviews with team members is we like to kind of tell your story, tell your background, and ask you a few questions about how your career progressed. So we go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times. What's your first memory of racing? How did you get into racing? And, where are you from? But from what I understand, racing was kind of like the family thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's what everybody did.
Yeah, it is. I mean, much like, Ryan's family, my grandfather did it. My grandmother even raced some. When she wasn't racing, she was working on my grandpa's car, and they raced in the 50s and even in the 40s a little bit. And then my dad and uncle came along, Butch and Gary. Butch is my father, Gary's my uncle, and they started racing. And then I was old enough to get going, and it just, that's all I've ever known since I was a baby is being at the racetrack. So it's pretty cool. I've never had a real job, so I mean that's awesome, right?
What's the first vehicle you got behind the wheel of, at least that you remember, that you really started to find success in?
Well, I mean, just a late model. I started on dirt up in northern Michigan. I'm from Holt, Michigan, Lansing area in southern Michigan, and just getting on the dirt track and ripping it up and thinking it's pretty cool. But the first real stuff we started, I got with the car owner, Ray and Dan DeWitt, and they brought me into some Art Goal Racing, which was competitive Midwest late model series, and ASA. And then we moved everything down south to North Carolina and done some ARCA and Busch Series racing. And that was really when it started going in a good direction. But didn't spend a lot of time at home racing. I was always on the road and at different tracks every week. And that was nice. I think, other than I was jealous a little bit. A lot of my buddies that raced local tracks and won track championships and stuff. I was always at a different track every week because that's kind of what my dad wanted me to do, just to get well-rounded. And I think he was right, but I always had regrets of not running, local tracks and being the 10-time track champion or something, the dreams, whatever dreams I had going on at that time. But I have no regrets now.
You had a mixture of dirt and asphalt, or just asphalt at that point? Or?
Well, I started on dirt. I ran maybe 2 years on dirt, and then quickly moved to asphalt in late models, super late models, and that was pretty much what I ran the rest of the time. Now, my dad and uncle, they run dirt sprint cars, super modifieds, dirt back then, you raced, if you had a late model, you raced dirt one night, dirt Friday night, and pavement on Saturday. You really didn't. My dad always says, if you don't tell the car, it won't know the difference. So we, that's what you did. And nowadays it's a little more separated, obviously. But back then you could do whatever you wanted, and you just change a car over and go racing. But it's a different time now for sure. But I always enjoyed racing in Michigan and doing a little bit of both.
Now, ASA and the ArtGo series and stuff that you're involved in, those are some pretty legendary series that a lot of legendary drivers that went on to become cup champions and stuff came through. What was it like racing at that level? And do you think that really got you prepared to make the jump into NASCAR after you guys, got all the way down to North Carolina?
I mean, it was hard. I never won an ASA. I won a race in ArtGo, the short track nationals in Rockford, Illinois, which was a cool win for me. But ASA, I think I finished third a couple times and came close. But you were racing with Butch Miller and Bob Seneker, Mike Eddy, Mark Martin at times. There was just a lot of different Dick Trickle, of course. And back then, you just, not that it's easy to win now or ever was, but it was particularly tough then. And I never stayed there long enough to just as I got going to where I felt I was getting really competitive each week, we moved down south and concentrated our effort in the Busch Series. So that another little regret I had. I wish I could have stayed and raced a little longer. Perfect world in the ASA series and won some races and then moved down south. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And I was fortunate enough to have good people behind me that paid my way in the sport. So very fortunate.
So you made that jump to what was then called the Busch Series, now Xfinity, and you raced there from 92 to around 2005-ish. And to give people, example here, I said you had a successful career, 4 wins, 25 top fives, 66 top tens across all of those seasons. It looks like your most successful season was around 1998 Kleenex car. I think if people think about you racing back then, that was probably one of your most popular cars in the photos that they'll see for Bill Bumgarner. What was so special about that time, maybe even specifically that year, where you picked up like 2 wins and tons of top tens, top fives? Like, what came together that year that really made you guys competitive?
I don't know. I think just the team I was with Base Motorsports. I mean, like you said, Bill Bumgarner. I was teammates with Randy LaJoie at the time, and they just won 2 championships back to back. And I think that was their third as a team. I think Johnny Benson won it a couple years before that. So the team that was the first when I joined it obviously went to a 2-car team, and they'd never done that before. So just had a lot of fun racing with Randy and LaJoie, of course. If you don't know Randy, you need to probably have him on your podcast. Everybody will watch, because you never know
buckle
what
up.
Randy's going to say. Yeah, buckle up. That's damn sure. But we just had a lot of fun then, and we had really good race cars, and it was just just everything fit right.
So you have a couple of connections to the Blaneys along the way that we'll talk about. One we were just interested in, it looks like, in around 2004, when you guys were with Fitz Bradshaw, Dave did run a few races with that team. Do you remember anything from that time, or when you guys maybe would have been just briefly teammates just for a week or two here?
Yeah, not really. I do remember. I mean, I remember watching Dave race,
Yep.
all over the place. I mean, he was a hero, right? Like, but I also remember him racing against him at different tracks when he was in the Amoco car, I think. He raced that in the Busch. I think Bill Davis Racing, and so yeah, I have memories of it, and just kind of, it was always kind of cool to have him around, and I was a big open wheel guy, so obviously having him there was great for the series. And I actually, Corey LaJoie sent a picture of me, Randy, and Dave all in our fire suits behind our trailer somewhere. I don't know where he found that, but he sent it to me recently, and I didn't even it was the first time I'd seen that picture in a long, long time. So that was pretty cool.
So you did before that Bradshaw deal, you did a little bit of spotting. Then you've got back in that car that I think you actually were spotting for briefly.
I did.
But then around what 2006 is when you make the change, basically going spotting full time. Like what went into that decision? Did you again think that you were done driving and this was going to be your new career, or were you not really sure?
I wasn't sure, I knew, everything was drying up as far as the driving goes. I was, I I'd pretty much run my gamut. I was out of money, never really had any money. Was just lucky enough to get rides. And back then, you could drive for people, and you didn't have to. It's a little different now. I mean,
Yeah.
you pay for your ride, and I mean, there's still a lot of talented drivers that don't have a lot of backing that are able to get rides, and I think it's cool. Sometimes it gets a little bit overstated that everybody's paying for the rides, and just in a lot of cases that's not true, right? But I knew my days were limited as a driver. I remember one of the teams calling me and said, "Hey man, you want to drive my car this weekend at Bristol?" I'm like, "Yes, I'd love to." And he goes, "Can you buy the tires?" And I'm like, I don't think so. So then I figured I better find something else to do, right? Like, and I was lucky enough to, Bill Elliott needed a spotter for some races when he was racing for his last, I think it was the second to last season with Ray, and I'd known Bill here and there, and I just got going with that, and I spotted for Kerry some when he was at Fitzbradger, Kerry Earnhardt, and it led into another career for me.
What would you, for those that are listening that have been used to listening to Josh on the radio the last several years, like what would you describe your spotting style as? We have the guys that are like coaches and cheerleaders. Josh was more like cool, calm, collected. We'd like to think. Like, where do you think you fall kind of in that range?
I try to be. I'm pretty calm and cool, I think, but I also try to, you know, I don't know if coaching is the right word. It depends. You can spot up or spot down for whatever particular driver you have. Like obviously, I do the Xfinity series. I do a truck. I do so. And then I'm going to do Ryan. Like Ryan's got a lot of experience. I really don't have to tell him how to drive or help him with a situation that a young driver wouldn't know. So again, you spot up, you spot down, but I try to just I'll be a calm effect on the radio and try to keep everybody calm. And I don't know. I'm not. I don't talk all the time, but I talk a lot, and obviously I talk more. The speedway stuff, you're always talking. You never let off the mic. But I try to find a balance in between to where what makes the driver happy and not say a lot of stuff that's just chatter, But if that's what the driver wants, then that's what you do. But like I said, you spot up, you spot down, and we'll see. I haven't worked with Ryan that much. We did a test in December. I've known him for quite a long time, and but you never, once you get racing, these first few races it's going to be a learning. I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be a learning process. I have to learn what he wants. I've listened to Josh 1,000 times, just in him communicate, and Jonathan. So and if, in my opinion, I listen to Josh, it's like listening to me, where there's not much difference. I don't think you're going to say, well, that's a whole lot different. But and I say that about pretty much 75% of the roof. I think if you listen to us, we sound pretty much alike. There is a few guys, like you said, that really go up above and beyond and really coach a little bit more. But in the Cup Series, I don't know. Most of the veterans don't really want that, right? They want to be told what's going on around them, what somebody else is doing. But as far as, I don't think they probably need to be coached a whole lot. They just need to know what the trends are, where people are running, and so I try to make a mix of all that and keep it all together.
Chemistry like that though, does it take a long time to develop? I mean, 2014, you're with your new driver there, and within by the end of that season, you guys win a championship. So, I mean, is it something that just kind of like after a while that clicks, or does it take a couple races or take a little while for you put it together?
I mean, I think it takes a couple races. I mean, luckily we got the Clash. You go to the Clash, and then that's kind of a one-off, and it's a little bit different racing than what we're used to. And then we go to a couple speedway events, Daytona, Atlanta. I would say, by after Atlanta, of all the talking I'm going to be doing between them two races and all the tight racing we're going to have, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we need to do. And you go to, I think, Vegas maybe after that. So I think, by Vegas, 3 races in, you should have it down pretty good. We by this time we've talked, we've sat down, we've watched, we've watched races together, and I think we'll have a good idea what we need or don't need to do and need to say. And I don't really put too much into it. I think it'll all be great.
Steve mentions that championship that you won when you moved over to Kevin Harvick's team in 2014. You guys went on to win about 37 or so races together in that time. He retires at the end of last season, and he had an interesting career where he's real brash and everything at the beginning. I think by the end he was a real fan favorite. But what was your time like, with the 4-car, with Kevin, and just the success you guys were able to build together?
That was cool. I mean, we, coming off first year, we had such fast cars, and Kevin was just, really, really fast every weekend. And, to win a championship then and just get that out of the way, I guess, early. And then we went on to win races every year, just about, other than last year, which really kind of sucked for us. For Kevin, we wanted to get him a win bad. The team did in his last year. But just being part of that with Rodney and when Kevin was cool, and seeing Keelan grow up and Piper, that's fun, right? Like, I think that's part of the allure to Kevin was, just having his kids there and driving Keelan around at Michigan after he won, stuff like that. It's cool. You remember it. And, but also just to be a part, like, Kevin's, Hall of Famer, right? So just to be around someone like that. And, I always said, I wish I would have had Kevin around when I was driving. I would have been, I think, way better, just because he was such a smart dude, right? Like, not only behind the wheel, but in his business ventures and the way he sees things, his perspective. And, I think, it takes that nowadays. And obviously Ryan has figured out over the years, like, he's like last year, he figured how to conquer all of that, right? And bring it all together and manage it and win a championship. And that's what champions are all about, right? So I feel good. I felt I had a lot of fun, and to be able to come over and be with another champion, hopefully we can get a few more here, right?
Well, we were just talking before we started this call with you that Ryan and Kevin have a couple first place, second place finishes that you guys are in the middle of there. That Pocono, Ryan's first win, and then of course last year Talladega. So now you join the other team, so you don't have to worry about trying to chase Ryan anymore.
Exactly, that's a good thing, right? Yep, for sure. No, Talladega was fun. We, I thought we were neck and neck coming to the line, and it was. I wasn't really sure. I thought I'd seen the 12 go over the line first, but that stuff's cool. And then to end up where I'm at now, and it's awesome. Me and Ryan have talked about it a few times, and Josh as well, right? Like we've relived that spotting moment at Talladega, and it's cool. So it's something I'll never forget. It one of them finishes. It was pretty awesome.
You talked about it a little bit briefly earlier in this conversation, but how did the deal come together, moving to Penske and moving with Ryan? We've heard with other teams and other spotters and stuff before, they go out and have a beer, they go out and have lunch. Did you already have like a little bit of an existing relationship, or just how did that deal come together to kind of put you guys on one team?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've known Ryan. I've been, I guess we have a mutual friend that we fly with sometimes to the races, and I got to know Ryan, Mr. Ken. I got to know Ryan through flying, and he knew the connection. He knows I'm a Michigan guy, an open wheel guy, and I think that had a little bit, we had something in common always when we talked. and we kind of clicked from the get go. So I think when I really didn't talk to Ryan about it, we met for lunch. I think there were some spotters available. They probably met with a few of them. Me, Jonathan, and Ryan went out to have lunch and let it rest for a while. They talked about it, and I thought it over, and then they called me back and would you be interested? And yeah, I'd be honored. So it really wasn't a huge courtship or anything. We just I think it all felt right for everybody.
Now, most of the time that I can remember with Kevin, like when he would get fiery on the radio, it usually was around with like maybe a pit stop going bad or something like that. This past season, maybe just because the championship spotlight and that whole playoff run was on Ryan, like there was so much focus on him and like about how he could lose his cool in the car or get a little bit upset and angry. One thing we always noticed though is like he wasn't usually ever like pointing that anger at somebody on the team, but I always kind of felt like media and other fans kind of made it seem that way. But does that, I don't want to say does that concern you, but are you kind of ready to work with that through this season? I don't know how Ryan and Kevin will differ in the way that they react to things, but it just seemed like that was like such a talking point last year, especially the second half of the season with this, fiery Ryan Blaney, especially championship race. He got a little upset with the one car and stuff. So this year, like how are you gonna manage that going forward?
I mean, I'll do what I do and try to, I've been doing it long enough, and I've been with Kevin, and I mean, that's just part of it, right? I used to drive. I was an asshole.
That's true.
Spotter at times, right? Like and be honest with you, Monday, I didn't even remember what I said to him. I didn't, it was never directed at the team, nor do I think Ryan's is directed at anybody in particular. You're just mad, and you kind of, you say things that you don't even remember, right? Honestly, you don't remember them. But now we're all in such a tight little, the spotlight's on everything we do. Just like we got live feeds going out, we got just everything that, like you said, the media is so scrutinizing every little thing everybody says, especially when you're a championship contender. But I'm not. Everybody asked me that question, like, well, Ryan, man, he's fiery, I'm like, yeah, that's why he won a championship, and that's why we're, that's what you want to have, I think. And Kevin, I had Kevin, I always say post Keelan, and Billy O, when they were at RCR, had him pre Keelan, and he was probably a little bit different. Sometimes in Kevin's case, he told me, Timmy, I just quit pushing the button as much. He said, I still yelled, but I didn't push the button as much. And as he aged in his career and whatnot, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, I just, it's not something that I'm really too concerned. Maybe I should be. I just feel like I've done it long enough. I've been in the driver's seat, and I know that, that's just passion coming out.
Yeah, I think Steve would agree with Ryan, especially if he's mad about the car. Like he could be real mad about the way the car's driving in the heat of it, but then at a stage break, he'll just be like, "Yeah, if I think we'll just make a couple of these changes, it will be okay." You guys carry multiple radios. You got all these different channels. Bob Pockris put up a tweet earlier a few weeks ago, like saying, "Oh, they've changed these rules so spotters can have all this stuff." And spotters were like, "Oh, we've had all that stuff for the last few years."
Yeah.
So you're managing all of that. You're managing this relationship with Ryan. How important is this relationship you have to build with Jonathan Hasser going to be? Because we know that you're going to be talking to him on a separate channel a lot, getting information back and forth that you have to feed to Ryan eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same deal, really. I mean, I have to, we've been trying in the off season just to get together when we can, and I go to the shop and just do whatever I can to try to bridge that gap. But again, the first 3 races of the season will kind of, there's nothing compares to just getting in there in the heat of the battle. But yeah, I mean, communication is huge, and I feel like, we all pretty much see eye to eye, and again, I think we've all raced long enough. We're all professionals, and it's not a concern of mine. I feel comfortable like going right away, right out of the gate. And and having good line of communication. But I still, you do have to learn each other's idiosyncrasies and little quirks, and when to talk, when not to talk, and that does take a little time. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's gonna be some things that will. I'm still going to say what I say, and Jonathan will say what they say, but maybe 5 races in, it'll be a little different, right? Like you're going to mold into this, morph into this machine, and it does take some time.
The first points race you guys are going to be together for is going to be the biggest race of the season, obviously, in the Daytona 500. Ryan, historically, wildly successful on super speedways between his wins at Talladega, the win that he has at Daytona, multiple near wins in the Daytona 500. What are your thoughts on that style of racing and that style of spotting? And are you going to be able to, the way that Ryan runs and the way Team Penske operates at those races, they like to control the race, run out front. They don't usually bail to the back too often. I don't know if that differs from the strategy that Stewart-Haas would have. I think you guys work together as teammates pretty well to get up through the pack, but are you prepared for that? And is that a style of spotting and racing that you like to do?
Yeah, I think everybody likes speedway racing. I mean, it's hard. Don't get me wrong; it's a lot, but I feel like it's nice when you don't have to. You just talk the whole time you're talking. It's fun. Yeah, and as far as the last few years at Stewart-Haas, I think we all raced pretty hard. There wasn't much going to the back. All the Fords got together collectively in the last 6-7 years to try to make it better for the Fords as a whole. So I'm used to working, we always tried to work with the Penske cars until it was time not to work with them. And, the Fords, you tried to help when you could. Obviously, it sometimes works out, sometimes it don't. Sometimes there was hard feelings, but I do like speedway racing. And I think, obviously Ryan does too. He's really good at it. And I'm looking forward to getting to Daytona and winning a Daytona 500.
This might be a little inside baseball, but how many battery changes do you go through during a super speedway race?
Usually one battery change, and it usually gets you you forget to change it about 3/4 of the way through the race, and then you go, as soon as you start back green flag racing, your battery will start beeping. That knows, telling you your battery's going dead. But I try to remember and switch it on a yellow, or like halfway, just past the second stage. But it never fails. It always goes right in the middle of something important happening, or right in the middle of a fuel stop when you're trying to get them down. That's just Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I've always heard stories about like guys had to make a couple different battery changes, and it's like it always seems to be when something's going on.
Yes, it never seems to happen under yellow or whatnot. It's always right when you're 3 wide in the middle and going after it. But that's just the way it goes.
So obviously you're jumping onto this team that just won a championship, and no team so far in this era, in this format, this elimination format, has won back-to-back. So I don't know that we're all expecting, back-to-back championships, but for you in joining a new team, what would a successful 2024 look like for you?
I mean, just, I guess, winning multiple. The championship is hard, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be where you could just have a great year, be consistent, and win a couple races. Now I think you just have to be really fast if you can win 4 or 5 races in a season and just have a good playoff run. I mean, obviously you want to win the championship, but you have to kind of look at it a little differently. You just have to put yourself in a good position to where you can do that. And if you do that, I think you look back on it, well, we didn't quite finish it off at Phoenix. It comes down to one race, right? And that's hard. It's really hard. It comes down to Martinsville, right? Like Ryan and Jonathan, the whole 12 team, they obviously won Martinsville to advance. There's so many things that got to go right. But I think you have to, when it's over and you look back, you kind of got to have realistic goals, and the championship really now is a bonus that, I mean, it's just a harder thing to accomplish. It's so hard to win a championship, and just because there's so many variables now. I think maybe other people look at it differently, but back from the old format to this format, back in the day. I'm not saying it was ever easy. It wasn't, but it's really hard. And it's, I don't think you can be down on your team if you won 5 races and a couple playoff races and didn't win the championship. You had a great year, right? So, I mean, I want to have a great year, win some races, win big ones too. We talked about some. I mean, obviously Daytona, Indy, Darlington, big 3, the 600, just be fast at the cool places. Martinsville is always fun to win at, right? Like, so, Talladega, but then again, it's fun really to win everywhere. So, I mean, them are the races that stick in my head that, I would love to win, but, it don't really matter. You win 4 or 5 races anywhere, you've had a good year.
Well, Timmy, really want to thank you for your time. And we know we're really looking forward to see what the future is going to be like for you and Ryan and this 12 team as they go out to try and defend their championship. And we're really looking forward to you winning your second Cup Series championship as a spotter.
That would be good for everybody.
Hopefully that comes sooner than later for sure. So, but thank you. Thanks for coming on to the Team Blaney podcast. And we definitely hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll talk soon.
That was Tim Fedewa, the new spotter for Ryan Blaney, the number 12 Ford Mustang for Team Penske on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.